Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. This podcast is for and about women of colour and our relationship with nature. Hosted by me, Sheree Mack. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is committed to exploring the experiences of women of colour with Mother Nature. We want to provide spaces where the hidden voices in the environmental and conservation conversations can explore their relationship with the natural world. Inspired by our time spent outdoors, we amplify the voices of women of colour, our stories, our conversations, interviews, photography, writing, and artwork. We'll be exploring our legacies, histories, and memories which have had an influence and effect upon how we perceive ourselves within the natural world and within the environmental and climate justice movements. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast has been made possible by the funding from National Lottery Heritage Fund. Thank you. Good morning, people, and welcome back to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. And if you can't hear it in my voice, if you could see me, you'd see it. I am beaming at you this morning, or today, because the 13th of July 2021 is the 1 year anniversary of the creation of this podcast. And who would have thunk, A year on, and we're releasing our 30th episode today. And who would have thunk how successful this podcast has been, how many people it has resonated with, how many people are actually listening, reaching out and commenting and saying how much they love the podcast, how much they're connecting with it, how much they are just really enjoying what is coming into their ears from the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. And that is so lovely to hear, because it was created to share our stories, women of colours, connection with nature, our stories, and just to make us more visible within the landscape, within society, that we do have a relationship with nature. And it might not be like everybody else's. Well, it won't be, because it's unique. Each of us has a unique relationship with nature. And it's such an honour as the host to bring these stories to wider audiences, to share them, to actually sit down with these lovely, beautiful people and just like chat about this thing that's been nature, man. She is beautiful, phenomenal, and it's so beautiful and so amazing that we are kin, we are related, man. So welcome to this 1 year anniversary episode. And in this episode I'll be talking with Cherelle Harding, who created Steppers UK in the Midlands. And it was such a lovely conversation that we had in March. And I'm not even going to make any apologies, because I know it's July, right? But the thing with these conversations that we have, right, we record them at a certain time, but by the time they come out, the conversation's still relevant. What we talk about spreads or encompasses time And I mean, it's a shame in the sense that, you know, the things that we talk about, and in this we talk about walking out in groups, the barriers, how we first come to get a relationship or connect with nature, and those childhood experiences that you have that stick with you, that maybe light a flame in your belly. And these are not time sensitive conversations. They are, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, they're time limitless, because it's so relevant what we talked about in March, but then what we talk about now in July, and what we'll be talking for the end of the year. Because remember, my word of the year is slow, and what this also means is that I accept that making change, fundamental change to the system or practices of the outdoor industry, about conservation and protection, does take time. Slow, incremental steps are made. And I'm totally a believer in that, because if you take things slow, things stick. Things definitely stick. They have a chance to bed in and make an impression and make fundamental change. So yeah, slow, and that might mean also that, you know, we do take our time in getting these episodes out to you. But what I want to tell you is that this month, July, and in honor of our 1 year anniversary, we'll be dropping 2 episodes each week. So this one with Cherelle Harding is happening now on the 13th of July. Did I mention it's our 1st year anniversary? The next one will be out by Friday of the week. And then we'll hopefully mirror that for the next 2 weeks going forward in July. So by the end of July, we have dropped all episodes that we've recorded so far in 2021. And then August is going to be, you know, a little break. We're going to have a little bit of a break. But what you could do in August is not only go back into our, library or our history, listen again to your favorites, listen again to some, or listen for the first time to some episodes, but also what you could be doing is sending me your email address. Yeah, because the Earth Sea Love podcast, as a little birthday present to ourselves and to the world, we're starting the Earth Sea Love zine. That is Z-I-N-E zine, the Earth Sea Love zine. And this is going to be, first of all, digital, and then also physical. And it's where we're going to be sharing much more of our adventures as an organization. 2021 will see the end of the public funding from the National Heritage Lottery Fund, and also Arts Council England in a certain degree. So the funding's coming to an end. So Earth Sea Love as an organisation is moving slowly, remember, to becoming a social enterprise. That is offering those experiences out in nature to those people who are underrepresented within the landscape, but then also opening it out to offering special groups, special experiences in that special places in nature. Because we'll be doing so many different things, we want to keep in touch with you, not just in our podcast, but then also in a written form. So that's where the zine's coming in. Call it a newsletter, call it a love letter, call it a love note, call it a zine. That's what we're calling it, the Earth Sea Love zine. If you know me, you know I love my zines, and I've created some digital ones and physical ones, and hopefully the Earth Sea Love zine is where we're going to jam pack it full of useful information about what we're doing, but then also about finding out things about these plants around your garden, sharing information, sharing our inspiration, really, for getting out there again and again and again. So, and what else is going to be coming back? So, the zines are going to start in September. So, you've got a whole month to just send your email via, I'll send the details, or I'll put the details in the show notes. But Instagram's probably a good way. DM me on Instagram, Earthsea Love, and we'll get you on the list. And we're doing it old school, man. We could get us email service provider, and we will at some point, but this is going to be just a personal touch, man. It's like a one-to-one. We value and we recognize the power and the strength of the Earthsea Love podcast has been those one-to-one conversations, those one-to-one connections, and I think that's how we want to continue. We value those individuals, those one people, one woman of colour who has shared their story. We value the individual, so we want to continue doing that by having this intimate, direct contact with you as an individual. And what we're choosing to do that is through your email and sending you these Earthsea Love zines, which should be happening in September. So we're having a little break in the month of August, but you can get in touch, send your email, get on the list, so you're all set up for September when we start dropping those zines. And also, if you were following me, that's Sheree Mack at Sheree Mack Writes on Instagram, and also the Earthsea Love account on Instagram and Twitter, you would have seen that in June I walked the Northumberland Coastal Path. And I'm so grateful for everybody who followed my adventures, my journeys, my walks, was sending me words of encouragement, was shouting out for me, who believed in me, who supported me, man. It was so really appreciated, especially in some tough miles. But I so much enjoyed sharing my footsteps. So why am I talking about this? It's because come September, I think we're going to be coming back with the podcast after this little break with a special edition episode about that walk, about that journey. So it'll be, an individual episode again, but it will be me waxing lyrical about that walk, because I'm still processing it, man. But again, it brought me so much joy to just be out there, just having to think about putting one foot in front of another, getting from A to B. So I look forward to sharing that episode with you. And so you're going to get in touch and give me your email. And also, if you think there's somebody out there that you know who is a woman of colour and is doing amazing things, or not even doing amazing things but has a connection with nature, send them our way. Right, this has gone into a long intro, but it's a good way to set up this episode with Cherelle Harding, who is a lovely young woman who is out there changing the way young people and other groups of people who are underrepresented out there in nature, and getting them out and walking together in such a supportive and wonderful way. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope to be hearing from you soon. Take care. Bye for now. Hello, Cherelle. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for agreeing to be part of the Earthsea Love podcast. And how are you feeling?
I'm feeling really relaxed today. The sun is shining. I've got my windows open, and it just feels so great to just have the sun on my skin. It's been a while since we've seen it, so I'm happy.
It does.
Spring is here.
It does make a difference, doesn't it? I've
Indeed.
definitely felt a shift in my energy. So, if you're saying you've got the windows open, you've got some sun, can you just tell us where you are? Usually, it is the question that I ask, so we can situate ourselves. Where are you? And can you actually see some nature outside your window?
So I am in sunny Coventry in the
Oh,
Midlands, and I don't have the best of views, but I where my flat is, I overlook lots of people's gardens. So I can see a lot of people's kind of things that they're growing. And it is an open sky and it looks amazing at night time. So there's not too many tall buildings around. And I also have a great view of the sun setting. So I'm really grateful for that.
yeah, that sounds wonderful. And as we say, it does make a difference to see the light at any time of day, actually, coming out of winter and going into spring. So, welcome again. And you came onto my radar first with Black Girls Hike, actually. So let's start with that, because can you explain to anyone who's listening what Black Girls Hike is or about, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so Black Girls Hike is a hiking organization and it's a space that is for Black women and it's run by Black women. And I first came across Black Girls Hike when I was on Instagram and I was just having a bit of a rant. I think that's probably the best word for it. And I'd put out a post just saying, oh, I wish that I knew more Black people that loved nature and loved going hiking. And then to my surprise, someone sent me a link to Black Girls Hike Instagram. And I was so shocked because I was just thinking, where has this been my whole life? And they'd recently just started, I think maybe a couple of months or so before I'd actually put that post out. And then from there, I think I ended up going to a walk within the next few weeks. And then a few months later, I got involved and became a Midlands leader. So yeah, it was just all really exciting. That's how I first got involved with Black Girls Hike.
Cool, cool. But now, I mean, maybe a couple of years down the line, you've moved on in a sense and you created Steppers UK. And, the cynics out there are probably thinking, well, why create another group of walkers for Black people, say, when you got Black Girls Hike? Do you not think that's enough?
Oh yeah, we've definitely heard comments along those lines. But yeah, so I still am Midlands lead for Black Girls Hike. But last year, 2020, I thought it'd be really good to just create another avenue because, that as we say, like Black people are underrepresented out in the outdoors. And I just wanted to create a space where more people can get outdoors and just explore in spaces that are familiar. And at the time, last year, the beginning of lockdown, I was going out hiking with a lot of my friends and a lot of us are from different backgrounds, South Asian backgrounds, Pakistani backgrounds, Black, Caribbean. And it was just so nice because everywhere was closed during lockdown. We just found that we were going out and walking more. And so that's where I kind of got my inspiration from because us walking in the countryside was just such a rare sight. I thought this would be amazing to kind of continue this. And that's kind of where it started, really. But yeah, I just think it's important because we're underrepresented and the countryside can be an unfamiliar space. So I wanted to create that space where people can feel a bit of familiarity in amongst an environment that's probably not a place that people aren't very used to.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I totally hear you. I quite agree with the idea of just trying to get out together into unfamiliar territories. I know that I'm trying it up here in the Northeast, but thinking about, how I approach this Steppers UK and creating another group, there has been a bit of a backlash, hasn't there, publicly around Black Girls Hike, but then also the whole issue of Black and brown people getting out into nature more and it being highlighted, or actually, as I like to say, amplified. What do you think about this backlash?
Yeah, I think that, the backlash, we see it on, obviously, we've seen it with complaints and we see it on Twitter all the time. But I just think those opinions are from people that don't understand or don't care to understand. So it's really draining to focus a lot of your energy on it. So
Mm.
I just think now it's a stage where, you know what, this energy can't be put towards them and it just has to be put towards the actual task that we're trying to do. And it's not our job to try and educate people on the reason that we're doing this. You know, there's lots of information and stuff out there. And I also just think the outdoors, it's for everybody, meaning that there's not just one way that people want to explore it. So just stop being mad at the ways people feel comfortable to explore a space. Of course, yes, in this, you know, perfect world, everyone holding hands and singing Kumbaya. That's not, do you know what I mean? It's not a reality. So I think that we're working towards, you know, we're not at a stage like that. So we have to kind of create different avenues for people to just feel comfortable.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, you know, that these groups, what we're doing is actually saying the same message as any other group, say Ramblers or Walking Unite or whatever. It's a case of like getting out into nature will, you know, the benefits are endless for your physical well-being, your mental health. And, you know, you're right. Spending that energy and focus on people who are focusing on that negative and not actually listening to the message because it's coming out of a black mouth.
Yeah.
You know that, I mean, you're right, it's wasting time. But I must say, this backlash has amplified what Black Girls Hike's doing, but then also what you're doing in the Midlands. And I think it's really important that we are actually coming out from the regions, basically, and putting ourselves on the map for doing this, because a lot of the time initiatives or groups are London centred. So I'm really pleased that you are in Coventry in the Midlands and do. And the other thing that's happening with Steppers UK is what I've been seeing about British Science Week. What's this about, if you don't mind telling me and everybody else?
Sharing, yeah, sure. So we recently received some funding from the British Science Association, and the project is basically about exploring the psychological benefits that spending time in nature has on us as individuals. And I really wanted to focus on those that live within a city, because we're limited on the amount of green spaces that we can access, but also the quality of those green spaces. So, for example, where I live, I do have access to like a few parks and stuff, but they're not always very nice when you go there. So really wanted people to get out and just kind of explore perhaps local country spaces or country parks. And the original plan was for us to get out as a group, and we basically would be filling in well-being scales before the activity and after, to measure the difference on how we're feeling and those kind of things. But obviously, due to COVID, we weren't able to do that as planned. So we had a little bit of a change where each individual got out by themselves or with a member of their family and just kind of explored an area that was close by to them. And they did questionnaires before and after, and it was just so lovely. I sat here reading through, and it was just so lovely to just hear people's kind of thoughts on their walk. What did they see? What did they notice? How are they feeling? Are they looking to make walking a part of their life more? And it was just so positive. It really was. And it just shows how much nature can be therapy for us.
And I think it's a case of, because of a number of barriers and history and cultural differences, we have been missing out on this fix, this medicine, this therapy in a sense. And it's such a simple thing to walk outside, but for some people, it isn't a simple thing. And you know, some people that I've talked to, especially women, the idea of going outside and what to wear is a major issue, and not wanting to draw more attention to themselves. So they haven't gone outside instead and, you know, stayed inside with that fear. And that potential fear, or that potential of reactions to you going outside, actually does affect your stress levels. So even if you do come into contact with somebody who's not welcoming outside, that affects your health. But the thinking about it even beforehand and not doing it also affects your stress levels. So, you know, we could say that because of what we actually go through in society, with living under the white supremacy culture, that we actually need even more therapy, nature connection, nature support in a sense. So it's really good that there's these groups and these initiatives that are happening so we can support our mental health. So you've got these lovely findings. You can see maybe the positive effect that this is having on. So how's these findings going to be shared or disseminated?
Yeah, so we're still looking at how we're going to use that information at the moment, but looking at them, it just shows how much it is needed, particularly within our communities. And when I look at, like, particularly last year, going through like Black Lives Matter, the rise of Black Lives Matter movement, and that period of time, and finding that the outdoors was just something that I was doing more, and it just makes me think, particularly as a Black person and Black people, we need therapy of whatever kind that is, whether that is going outside and exploring. So I think the findings will be used to encourage more people to get outside. And, data is one thing, but also, just those anecdotal experiences that we'll be sharing amongst our social media and on our website and stuff when it's launched.
Well, it's lived experience, isn't it? And sharing our stories is so important. It just comes in line with the idea of those role models, and seeing ourselves out there walking, doing these things does change our mindset and gets us thinking, maybe I can do this too. I think so.
It does. Yeah, it does, because even obviously there's lots of figures and stuff out there now about the amount of Black people that are accessing spaces and etc., etc. But what I found mostly, especially as more people are kind of coming across Steppers, is that they've just seen someone that they know that's taken part in it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of triggered something in them, like, oh, this looks interesting. Yeah. So yeah, the figures and stuff are important, but I just think those visuals and people actually having a genuine connection and wanting to do it makes all the difference.
And I totally agree, because that's why I was asked about how's it going to be disseminated. Because there are loads of research projects out there that have said about the health benefits of nature. And there's the statistics, and there's the academic papers and the reading. But you've got to think, it's like, what audience? Who are they aimed at? Yeah. And what is the purpose for them? And for me, I'm thinking, if we have this information, or if we have these stories and lived experiences, we must be trying to find ways to feed them back into the community so we can increase our range and our numbers outside there in the countryside, and to try and get that message across to certain organizations that might be running research projects, which are usually, people who are leading it are usually white people. It's the case of like trying to get them to listen to us and say, hey, these are our stories and this is the way we'd like to share them with our people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think as well, it's about being creative on the ways that people are exposed to the outdoors or like to explore. And again, it goes back to, there's not one way. Not everybody wants to march up a mountain and race up and just put a flag at the top of a mountain, so to speak. Some people just want to go out and explore. Some people might want to walk with music. So there's just not one way. And like, when I think back to like the biggest thing that really inspired me within the outdoors, I have to relate it back to reggae music, because I went through a period of my life when I started getting into reggae, listening to all the tunes that I would complain to my mum about playing when I was younger, that I'm now all of a sudden playing. But it really just taught me a lot more about nature and Rastafarianism, and through that it exposed me to the outdoors, and then I found myself just getting out and wanting to explore nature more. So again, that was music that introduced me to that. So it's now looking, okay, well, what other things inspire people to get outside? Is it perhaps art? Is it, I don't know, there's so many different ways.
And I love that you've just touched upon there about how you got into it with music, and that was something from your childhood, because that's a question that I really love to ask, is that I've been saying for years that I've just developed a relationship with nature, a connection with nature after a traumatic experience. But then if I look closer at my childhood, even though it was inner city Bradford, there were moments and experiences there when, okay, we maybe have gone to the big park, you know, a bit further away from home. But then there's the times that I was just walking to school and wanting to take a different route so I could pass by the greens or pass by the trees in autumn bloom. So there are moments within my childhood where nature did come into my life. So you've mentioned your childhood. So were you brought up within Coventry? I mean, what's your family background, and was it always in Coventry? And has your family influenced your relationship with nature?
Great question. So I was brought up in Coventry, born and bred. My parents are, my background's from Barbados and Jamaica. But for all of my childhood life, all I really knew was the city. So, you know, a lot of my life was just tailored around being in the city. So I didn't really know much of the great outdoors. But when I was in primary school, and again, this relates to yourself in those moments, I actually went to a place in Wales called Plas and that was where I think I'd done my first like canoeing trip, abseiling, those kind of things. So that was my first introduction to the great outdoors. And then I think I went 2 or 3, maybe even 4 more times, but they were just one-off experiences at school. They were end of year, you know, reward trips. And then you would just go back home, back to kind of normal life for another year. But it wasn't until I was 23 or 24 and I started working in a school as a teaching assistant, and I went to that same location, Plas but this time I was a member of staff. And I remember climbing my first mountain with some of the kids, and I literally remember having a moment of like, wow, this is incredible. We had perfect weather. We were sitting at the top of this mountain. So that was another moment. And then I've kind of grown up into my adult life, and obviously reggae has inspired me, but it's those moments put together that's really created this moment where I've been like, you know what, I want to start Steppers UK. So I think you're absolutely right, where even though my whole life wasn't really anything to do with the outdoors, but there are key moments that I can say actually built up to this moment.
Yeah. And I love that we can actually have that awareness. And okay, you know, it's in my memory, but it's also in my body in a sense. And you just saying about climbing that mountain again and it hitting you, I think that just resonates with me, the idea of how it is through our bodies that we've got to keep experiencing nature and the landscape, because it's the way that we should be living, but we're not living mostly at the time. Do you know what I'm saying? Did you just make a noise there?
Oh, sorry, it was an agreement. Like,
all right, we've got some interference.
I hear you.
I mean, like, I don't know. Is Steppers UK a thing that you do on the side, or is this your everyday job? I mean, you know, is this your life's work? I'm saying.
So I actually work a full-time job. So I'm actually a youth worker, like 9 to 5, so to say. But then Steppers is my full-time job that I squeeze into time.
Yeah, man.
But the aim is to work towards it being full-time. But the great thing is that because in Steppers, I'm hoping to launch some programs for young people. So in my job at the moment, I'm able to kind of plan that and just gain more experience. I've been working with young people for nearly 10 years now. So it's an area that I'm very familiar with. But it just means that while I'm building Steppers, I'm also able to kind of just work out within my own job. And it's a bit of support really on how I'm going to transition when I actually go into Steppers full time.
Yeah. I totally hear that and understand that. And it's because you're already plugged in with the youth. Yeah. And you've probably recognized what's actually missing in their, say, like a holistic development of them or education of them, and to get them. I mean, it is missing in the mainstream, that connection and relationship with nature in the youth.
It is, definitely. And I think when I look back to myself being a teenager, like, we love the outdoors, and working with young people now, a lot of them love the outdoors in the sense that they're always in parks and stuff like that. It's about, okay, how can we do what young people or just people in general are doing in the city, and how can we transition that into the outdoors?
Yeah. And I think it is starting on their doorsteps and looking at those green spaces that are within their locality, which they
Yeah.
might not have been accessing, but which once they've seen it and recognize it, can access it, in their own time or in their own space and building up from there. But I mean, but there's nothing that can be beat going on a coach trip, a jolly out with your mates a bit further from home and into the country and hitting it, busload sort of thing. Those moments do stay with you.
Don't they? They really do, actually. When I think back on like just coach trips or taking trips to the seaside, these are moments that stay with you. And there's so many young people out there that have never been to a seaside or
Yeah.
never been to a countryside. So yeah, it is definitely needed, and I do think that the outdoors could be so powerful for us. And when like we're speaking specifically about like the Black community, we're missing out on something that can be so therapeutic to us.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, totally. And then have you heard of All the Elements?
Yeah.
Something that I am supporting and trying to get more involved in, because it is there as a sort of network for all these different groups and organizations which are working to diversify the countryside and sort of providing resources and support, but it's actually bringing us together because we're all doing similar things in different parts of the country. But to actually know that there's others that are doing similar things and that we can actually support and reach out to each other makes a difference. If we do get exhausted or run out of steam or trying something and it's not working, it would be good to tap in to everyone's knowledge and wisdom and expertise to support us, to grow the network in a sense. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think All the Elements is brilliant, and shout outs to Soraya for that, because I think, like you said, there's so many of us doing it, and through a hub like All the Elements, you can find each other, because often enough, sometimes you can feel alone in certain spaces, especially if you feel that you're the only one doing something. So this journey of like diversifying the outdoors has been amazing for me. I tell you, every week I come across a new organization or community group that's doing something for Black people or people from Black, Asian and minority communities. And I just love it. I just think there's so much momentum now, which is great. And I just think it's going to get better. And, with numbers, it helps because, you know what I mean? You can push that message out there and you can get your voices heard, and we can just also support each other.
Yeah. And I think that's needed and necessary because we are making inroads into new areas. It's not a case, it's not a case that we haven't been doing it like for years, going out into nature and walking, but I just think it hasn't been visible. But now there's so many ways to make it visible, and if we can work together in that sense to make it, and I think that is a key here, because a lot of the times in the past when there has been funding going around and it's that scarcity idea that there's only a certain amount of money going around and we're going to give you this little bit for you to do your bit. So there has been that sort of like protectiveness and, well, I'm doing my own thing, and not being open and cooperative and collaborating in a sense, looking upon other people or other groups as competition rather than there as a resource and a source for support. And I can so feel the difference within, the Black community who are getting out into nature more, and the groups and organizations that are facilitating it. And there's so much of a different feel to this, I feel, after being around so long, doing different things.
No, honestly, there really is. And it really is wonderful to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And just on that note, I'm saying about funding, but am I right in saying that Steppers UK has got a GoFundMe campaign? That's it. Is that correct? Did I see that?
Yeah, so what we're doing, one of the challenges that we're doing is called the AOMB challenge, which stands for the Areas of Outstanding Natural Beauty. And our challenge is to visit all 46 that are in the UK. So we've only been to 4 so far because obviously things have been on hold over the past year. But it just means that we've got so many more adventures ahead of us. And that challenge actually started as a personal challenge of myself that I just randomly decided to do when I was browsing on Google one day. And I came across these places that all said AOMB. And these times now, I didn't really know anything about like the outdoors or names of places. So I ended up Googling it, and it came up areas of outstanding natural beauty. Realized there were 46. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to go to all of them. So I started off on my little adventure. This was about 3 years ago. So when I launched Steppers, I thought, this is a great challenge. I've already been to like 7 or 8 of them. These are some locations that I can start taking the group to. And so, yeah, I've just reset it now and just really want to do it with a group of people that are, you know, wanting to explore the outdoors as well. So if you are interested, yeah, we have that GoFundMe page, and you can just find that by just searching Steppers UK in GoFundMe.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm just thinking, we have, I don't know if you've earmarked up here, but we have it around the Northumberland coast up here. I don't know if you've seen our area of outstanding beauty, and it's a wonderful area, and I'd be more than willing to welcome you up to our area of outstanding beauty. I would love for you to come up, and if I can support you, if my group can support your group in any way, then please reach out to me and let me know if that means, you know, chipping in to the bus to get up here or not, please. And I mean that, because we have this area up here and it's underutilized in a number of ways, but definitely underexplored by black and brown faces. So
Howodian Hills.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
How far up are you? What part of the UK?
We're in Northumberland.
Northumberland, okay.
So it's the Northumberland coast, yeah.
Oh, that would be exciting. That would be,
yeah. Because, you know, it's such a they're all unique areas, aren't they? But this is so beautiful, not just for the landscape, but the coast, but also the wildlife up here. So yeah, we must talk off the podcast about sorting that out. But yeah, so I'm going to start winding it up here. But before we do that, you've talked about, you know, the GoFundMe campaign and these areas of outstanding beauty. What else is on the horizon for you and your group, but also, you know, just to bring about change in the narrative about who has a right to be out there in nature?
Yeah. So Steppers, one of the biggest things that we're looking to do is to start some programs for young people, because I think a lot of the change that's needed, we should be working with young people, because, you know what I mean, they're the next generation. And I think through children, we can interest like their parents and those kind of things. And just through school, I just think that's a great place to kind of instill some education. So that's what we're looking to do, and particularly working with inner city schools. And we're also starting to do we'll also be starting to do some other activities such as cycling, and really want to get into some wildlife and bushcraft activities, because these are all areas of the outdoors that, again, are just underrepresented. And I think there's just some really great life skills that could be built in exploring that.
Yeah. And I think you're starting at the right age for them to be having these experiences, because you know, knowing from my experience, I feel like I've come to it late in life, and feel that I've missed out on all those years of experiences, but it also builds confidence.
It does, yeah. And just to make it a regular thing that they can do, so they don't get to kind of our age and it's a struggle to, you know, find the outdoors. Whereas if they learn from young that, I don't know, I'm feeling upset, let me just go for a walk or spend some time in a nature reserve. If that's just normal from a young age, I just think that's something that will stay with them for the rest of their life.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It just becomes an everyday practice. And yeah, if that becomes the norm.
And that's what we need. And I think, again, for me, like with Steppers, it's just joy. Do you know what I mean? There's so much going on in the world at the minute, but I just push the message that joy is also an act of resistance. We deserve to be happy, not everyday trauma. let's heal in whatever way that is comfortable for us.
Yeah, man. And my hashtag for a while has been hashtag radical joy, because we deserve that. We have a human right to joy, and whatever we need to be doing to tap into that, then I say, let's go for it. Let's do that. Yeah. So I'd just like to say thank you for your time, Cherelle. Thank you. And if they want to find out about Steppers, do you have a website or Instagram
we will have a website that's launching soon, which will be steppersuk.com. But for now, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter, and our handle is steppers_UK. And we're also on Facebook as well, which is Steppers UK.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on here and chatting so openly and honestly. And we wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheree. Appreciate you having me.